Hi, everybody. My name is Rita Young, and I am the executive director of a new organization called Participant Directed Advocates of Georgia. And with me is our deputy director, Mitzi Profit. And we wanted to just come on, first of all, just let everyone know that we have a conference coming. It's going to be in Atlanta on Tuesday, August the 26th. If you are on our mailing list, you'll be receiving a link to that in just a few minutes, actually. So we are releasing it today. And so we wanted to just come on and tell you a little bit about the conference. We're going to be focusing on the topics that you said that you wanted in a survey that we sent out to families a couple of months ago. And that's housing. We're going to talk about tips and tricks on regarding self-direct and best practices. So things like writing goals, hiring staff, maximizing your budget. We'll also be talking to a panel on future planning. What should you be planning for when you are no longer here? What are some of the steps and who are the experts in those matters? And then we'll also be talking about self-determination with a panel of self-advocates, because of course, this is why we are all here. And so we want to just come on and just talk about self-direction, what it is. First of all, self-direct means a couple of different things. And we are in Georgia, and other parts of the country may call it something slightly different, or even within our own state, it's called something different. So we call it participant-directed services. And we'll talk about what that is in a second. It's also known as self-direct or self-direction. And then it's also known as consumer-directed services. So when we say self-direct, PD means participant direct, it all means the same thing. Am I right, Mitzi?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. So it all means the same thing. And what it means is for that individual with a disability and their family, they are able to, once they receive a Medicaid waiver, a home and community-based Medicaid waiver, so that they have a funding mechanism that they can stay in their own homes and communities. There are two options that we have here, right? So if one is called traditional and one is the self-direct, participant direct, consumer direct. So if you go the traditional route, that means a service provider is going to take care of everything for you and provide those services in their settings. That could be a group home, a host home, etc. So when you hear that word traditional, that's what it is, okay? Self-directed services. And by the way, we need those traditional providers. There's about 14,000 people in Georgia receiving services. So we need our service providers that have expertise in developmental disabilities, right? So the other option, when you receive a waiver, whenever that is, hopefully that's sooner than later, you can self-direct the services. Meaning if you're a person with a disability, you can recruit, hire, and train your own staff. You can create a schedule. If you need more support on that, maybe it's a family member that's doing that for you, then that person, like myself and Mitzi, we recruit, hire, onboard, and train staff. And so we have the ability to do that. Puts a little bit more control in our hands, right?
Yep.
We're able to find a good match for our sons and daughters. We like the model. I've been doing it since it started in Georgia, and I really can't even remember when that is. Somebody, if you remember, please let me know. But it's been over 10 years, way over 10 years, maybe 12 or 13. So that, and I choose to self-direct services because for that very reason, I can choose the staff along with my sons. We interview them together, right? So that's a little bit about self-direct. There's so many words swirling around in the system. We wanted to just come on and break down what self-direct services are. And in Georgia, we're the very first association for self-direct individuals and families. Yeah,
Yep.
That's a little. So yeah, Mitzi, anything to add to that? Why did you decide to
it's kind of crazy. So when I was thinking back, of course, Joshua started when he was 3 and in another state. So when I think back, we didn't really have we don't really have any control over anything at that point when we get that first diagnosis, and you have no control over services or what's going on with doctors or even accepting anything. So it was kind of like the only thing I could think I might have a little bit of control over. So when I heard self-direct, I was like, oh, it's about the person and I'm going to be involved, because I could not imagine even at that point putting a young person, or even, I didn't even comprehend where he's at today, but now I see the bigger picture, and you do too, because we've been living this a long time. So it's probably why our passion is so big about explaining and training, and the words of explaining the simple parent language of traditional or participant direct or self-direct, because we're directing that train to me. Like, I understand, like, when I talk to my son, like, what do you want to do? Because I would have never imagined why this is so important. Well, he wants to live in his own home. And we argue, and then sometimes I'm like, maybe you need to go somewhere. And things do change, that sick humor, like, oh my goodness, why couldn't you go live in your own apartment? But again, it's not that simple. But he'll be like, no, I want to stay in my own home. So, and it's okay. But we have that choice, to where if it was traditional, the choice isn't always that simple. So I always remind myself, it is that choice of our family. It's that choice of people in his community and our community, and it's ever changing. I mean, the services are not always ever changing, but we can help with that piece. So I feel like that's probably the one thing I can always stick to. I want that voice in the choices, no matter how hard we have to fight for it. I feel like I've done my best as a parent. So that's why I feel like when I hear self-direct or participant direct, we're involved in it. So I like that part of it, even though it's like, why did it take so long? Well,
yeah.
It's just part of it. I mean, even though it's the grunge of it, I'm like, I can't even imagine. And I can remember, like, what would it be like? And, even when it was getting out of school, like, what is it going to be like when what would the options be? But I'm like, check off list. No, it's not going to work that way. So we couldn't go that way. But a lot of people can. And then things change under the models of participant direct, but you have more options. But then again, there's always that fear of it. But then some people can't do it. So it's just, I think there's more freedom.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree. And so for those of us, I would say in the last 30 or so years, maybe a little bit longer than that, we have been those engaged family members throughout that IEP process. I mean, I remember prepping for those meetings for hours and hours, right?
Yes.
So we are, yeah, it is more work on us. It is. But I certainly at this point am very pleased with that option.
Yes.
And
it's got better. It has got so much. Everybody doesn't think that, but it really has got better. But it takes parents being open to discussion and thinking about their participant and looking for options. So, and talking about it. You have to talk about it. Change is not always easy, but it's about, making the systems accountable as well. And they don't know what they don't know, and we don't know what we don't know. So I always tell people that, but sometimes you got to talk about it to make change.
No, that's a great way of putting it. Yeah. We have to make the system work for us.
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah. So if you are that engaged parent and family member, then you understand what it takes to stay involved. Right. So I think as families, I don't know, I'm guessing we may have this fantasy that someone else is going to take care of this, right? At age 18 or whatever, 22, it's then we're done, right? So, but that's just not the case, right? I wish there was such a situation, but for those of us who, have been involved, love our adult offspring now because they're no longer 2, 3, 4, and 5, right?
Nope, they're grown.
And this is a viable option for you. There are many advantages, as we've talked about. There's some work, but you will learn how to do things, and it's certainly not impossible. There are roughly 3,000 people in Georgia, a little bit more doing this. So whether you're a self-advocate, maybe you have the ICWP waiver, or you're considering, what option to take, or you're a family member that has just received the Now Comp and is really struggling with, I don't understand all these terms, etc. I would invite you to follow us.
Yep.
And you can follow our socials. You can join our mailing list. We welcome you to learn more about Self-Direct. So we're just so pleased. And Self-Direct is offered all across the country. We're focused here in Georgia. But it is an option that Medicaid offers states, and all the states have selected it, to my knowledge. I don't know.
Yes, I think so too. Yes, I think it's growing. I mean, it is.
That's right.
It's not like people don't know what the word means anymore. So it's a very open conversation to have with families, and I really feel that we're a big movement.
I do too. And, at the beginning, when you first start, it might feel a little bit overwhelming, but just trust the process and know that there are families that have come ahead, so to speak, that can help and that can mentor you. And so there's just lots of opportunity for growth, and you will build your self-confidence in the model. So it just takes a little bit of time to learn. Yeah. So just keep a watch out for us. We'd love to have you join our conference in August.
Yes, please come.
And we'd love to have you join in person, because you just can't beat in-person networking, right?
That's right.
And it'll be in downtown Atlanta at the Carter Center. If that's not an option, and we certainly understand that there are people who are unable to travel, we also have a virtual option. And if you are a support coordinator or another professional that would like to learn from Self-Direct families, we also invite you to join us that day in Atlanta. So thank you all so much for listening. We will be back on periodically talking about the advantages of participant direction. And you all have a great day.